I don't know which one I want to write. Cool. So there's two basic kinds of books. Nonfiction, that's what we're going to teach the next 2 days. Fiction, we don't teach that. If you want to write a novel, there's a book called The Fiction Formula by Sean Platt and Johnny Truant. They're friends of mine. I actually gave them the title, The Fiction Formula, and I don't even think I'm in the acknowledgement. It's fucking bullshit. But they are, if you really want to do that, this is the book I recommend starting with. It's not the only book. There's tons of others. This is just the one I recommend. So there's two types of nonfiction. There's knowledge share nonfiction, and there's memoir. So let me explain these two, because a lot of people got hung up on this last time. So we're really going to dive deep into this. Knowledge share nonfiction is any nonfiction book you're writing primarily to help people solve a problem or create a transformation. For example, like all business books fit under knowledge share. Anything business is, here's a new idea, here's how to solve a problem, here's a thing you need to think about. That's all knowledge share. Personal development or self-help, right? Any book that's helping people get better, that's the stated intent, that's a knowledge share book. And a how-to, right? So this is a book by Shannon Miles. You guys know about the last two, I'm sure. She's a client of ours. She basically figured out a way that women especially can have a career and a family, and she talks about it deeply in here and kind of explains it to help thousands, tens of thousands of women have the family they want and the career they want. So she just walks you through exactly how to do it. A memoir is different. A memoir is where you tell your personal stories, or it's an autobiography, which is a little bit like a sort of personal stories, except personal stories is like, all right, I'm gonna tell 5 stories. Autobiography tends to be, I'm gonna talk about my whole life. It's the only real difference. Or a family legacy piece, right? I'm gonna tell you where I'm coming, where we came from. This is, you guys obviously know about Tiffany Haddish. We did that book. We did not do Michelle Obama's, which would have been cool, but that book is pretty well known. We did do J.T. McCormick's book. He's the CEO of Scribe. It's kind of how we met and how he came on board and took over. I moved out of my spot for him. He wrote this book to tell his family who he was. He legitimately did not think he was going to sell 1 copy outside of his family. Turns out he sold tens of thousands of copies. It's really helped a lot of people. So a knowledge share book is about delivering specific value, right? Help me solve, the reader's intent is, I want someone to help me solve my problem or get a transformation I want, right? A memoir is about telling your story to move or entertain the reader, right? So like I say, whenever I read a memoir, this is a thing we say all the time. No one reads your memoir to learn about you. They read your memoir to learn about themselves. So when I pick up a memoir, what I'm saying is I want to learn about myself by reading their story, right? Okay. Now, this is the big question a lot of you are thinking right now in your head. What if I want to help people, but I want to help them by telling my story? That's great. You can do it. Let me explain. There's a lot of subtleties here. Your book can be primarily about teaching something, or it can be primarily about telling your story. It can't be both at once, right? And I don't mean this as like a rule, like a traffic rule. I'm just telling you, if you try and do both at once, your book won't succeed at either, okay? Now, this is true even if the content's the same. And I'm gonna give you some examples because I know this is confusing a little. So on one side, you see The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. It's a really famous book. It's sold millions of copies, right? It's kind of like the definitive book about how to learn to meditate. The other side is Surrender Experiment, right? So yeah, Untethered Soul tells you how to be enlightened. It's in the self-help section. That's a how-to book. Here's how to take the journey beyond yourself, right? The other book, same author, same guy. It tells you the story of how the author became enlightened, right? It's the Surrender Experiment. He actually talks, this is in the memoir section because it is a memoir, my journey into life's perfection, right? It is the same story, basically, with the same information, basically, but he takes a totally different angle. In Untethered Soul, he only shares a little bit of his story, and it's only the parts of his story that are in service to telling people how to meditate and be enlightened. In the Surrender Experiment, it's all his story, and he doesn't have a lot of how-to. He just talks about what he did. All right, let me give you, let me elaborate a little. Knowledge share books can and should have your story in them, right? But your story has to be in service to sharing knowledge. Let me give you another example. Can't Hurt Me. David makes a point in this book to give the reader lessons based off his life stories. The subtitle is Master Your Mind and Defy the Odds. This is a personal development book, even though the whole thing is his stories. But he's using his stories specifically and intentionally to teach you how to master your mind, right? Tiffany Haddish just tells her story, and she lets the reader decide what it means to them. She doesn't tell you what any of this means to you, just to her. There's no how-tos. She didn't tell you how to make it in Hollywood, how to make it as a comedian, how to be a Black woman in entertainment. She didn't talk about it. She could. She didn't talk about any of that in the book. They're very similar life stories, right? But David's is in the personal development self-help section. Tiffany's is in the memoir section, right? Does this make sense? If it does, say yes. If not, keep listening. There is some overlap between the two, okay? But they have fundamentally different jobs to do. For a knowledge share book, the job, meaning the job it does in the reader's mind, the job of a knowledge share book is to explain the solution to a problem or how to create a transformation, right? The job of a memoir is to tell your story as honestly as possible so the reader can learn about their own life. Now, there's no right or wrong answer to which book you should write. I can't tell you which one it is. The answer depends on what you want your book to accomplish for you. Now, I'll give you a general rule of thumb. Generally speaking, if your primary goal is business related, using a knowledge share book is best, right? So for example, David really wanted his book to kind of establish him as an authority in the self-help space and really help elevate his speaking fees and get him more attention. And it worked, right? Generally speaking, if your primary goal is personal growth related, write a memoir, right? Does this make sense? Look, you can write both. You can be do exactly what Michael Singer did. Take the same knowledge, write one knowledge share book and one memoir about the same time period, the same set of knowledge, totally valid. Most people, I will tell you, have multiple books in them. They have at least one knowledge share book, if not more, and at least one memoir, if not more. I'm on my 5th memoir right now. Well, 4th, depends how you count. Again, do not combine them. Anyone know what a meatball sundae is? This is a great term. Seth Godin did not invent this term, by the way. Someone else did. He just titled the book for it, so he gets credit. But it's a brilliant book. Basically, the idea is very simple. Meatballs are delicious. Ice cream is delicious. When you put them together, it's kind of disgusting. That's what happens when you try and combine a knowledge share book and a memoir. You generally end up accentuating the worst parts of each. If you're still uncertain, then here's what I want you to do. I want you to keep your mind open, and I want you to watch the next 2 trainings, which are coming. Book positioning and book objectives. We're going to do mindset first, then we're going to do positioning and objectives. All right, let's take questions right now. So Hal and Emily, are there any questions that are good, that are on that subject that we should take right now?
I actually want to jump in with one more, sharing my own experience of writing a memoir, which is that I started my memoir thinking that I was writing it to share with other people, and only midway through realized I was really doing it to explore myself. So that's going to happen, I think, to a lot of people. I think we're so tempted to dive in and tell our story because we hope it will help people, because that's the thing that legitimizes our effort. And it's actually after we dig into it and you realize the benefits that you get from telling your own story to yourself, that you can start to go deeper.
Yeah, so we cover that deeply in the memoir course on Scrapbook School. Absolutely. It's a huge part.